I'm not gonna lie, we walking them dudes down. We're
Mm.
walking them down. I was Lonzo his senior year. Me and Melo doing our thing. We had some dogs. And that Mount Verde, they're still babies. Like they're little kids. They had Kay, Scotty, Moody. I think we're walking them dudes down.
Welcome back to the Kenny Beecham podcast, y'all. Another day, another guest. We go from Shams Charania to today having Onyeka Okongwu onto the show, and we just wrapped it up. And I'll tell you, he was a pleasure to have him to the show. He had never done a podcast before. How is that possible? In 2024, where everybody's got a show, you've never done one before. So he comes onto the show and opens up a little bit about his time at Chino Hills. He talks about his time with the Atlanta Hawks and so on and so forth. But after we get done with that, I'm going to come out of the interview and we're going to talk about Zach LaVine's season-ending injury and what that means for the Bulls. I'm probably going to rant a little bit. Just be prepared, okay? Be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, go over to Spotify, Apple, give us 5 stars. It does nothing but help the show out. We can send it over to these aides and say, hey, the Kenny Beecham podcast gets this many views per episode. You let your talent come in. We can help. So I appreciate that. You know what? Let's just get into our conversation with Onyeka. Now I want to welcome in Atlanta Hawks own Onyeka Okongwu. Welcome to the show, my guy.
What's up, brother, man? Appreciate you having me here.
Of course. Now, I like to do my due diligence, do a lot of research about my guests on the show and everything. You're somewhat of a mysterious guy. I couldn't find a single podcast appearance or anything. So I'm going completely blind, but I'm hoping that this is going to be fun.
For sure, man. This is my first podcast I've been on.
Wow. Well, we're honored here, to have you. And anytime you're looking for another podcast to come on, we really here. We really here for it.
Sure.
We catch you at the right time, my guy. You having some of your best games of your career the other night against the Warriors was a big one.
Yeah, man. That was a big game for me and my team. Been on a rocky road this season. Last night against the Warriors. Finally won 4th game. So just try to continue to stretch, try to keep it going.
I feel that. Before we get into all of this, there's one question that the world has been asking for like the last 2 months. I don't know if you've seen this question. 2020 Mount Verde or 2016 Chino Hills?
I'm not gonna lie, we're walking them dudes down.
Mm.
We're walking them down because, I was Lonzo his senior year. Me and Melo doing our thing. Jello, Eli, we had some dogs. And that Mount Verde, they're still babies. Like they're little kids, They had Kay, Scotty, who else they have over there? Moody,
yeah. Dariq Whitehead is on that team.
Him too, but
yeah.
They ain't nothing we ain't seen before. We beat Mount Verde my Chino Hills year.
Have you seen all of the I guess every high school prospect has been asked this question like 100 times this year.
Yeah, but you think about it, like 2016 was like 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't really see us in our prime. Like they didn't see how good we really were. They going off, Mount Verde, seeing K, Scotty, all of them in the league now. I think we're walking them dudes down.
Are you concerned if this is fake game happened that you and LaMelo are both freshmen, right? You're coming in at 13, 14 years old versus them. I think most of them are like juniors or seniors at that point.
Like I said, we took down a Mount Verde team back then. They had RJ Barrett, they had Bruno, yep. They had EJ Montgomery, they had all these top 5 players, and we had them down 20 at one point. So we wasn't worried about nobody that got on that 2020 team.
So this is so interesting because that 2016 Chino Hills team was like one of the first internet sensation high school teams. And obviously, when we think about high school teams that are blowing up and doing great things, y'all are in an elite company of that's a public school. And public schools normally aren't that good. So in the moment in time, did y'all recognize how crazy things were going?
At the moment, not really, because Chino Hills, we were always like, we were good, in prior years. But that year, I think after we beat Mount Verde, that's how we knew we were really good. And then we continued to, beat teams by 20, selling out arenas, having, celebrities come to our games. Towards the middle of the year, that's how we knew like we were pretty damn good.
Well, what celebrities? What celebrities are pulling up?
I'm trying to think. I think Harden came out to a game.
Okay.
There's a bunch of league dudes that are coming out to our games. Coming out to supporting.
When was the moment for you? Where like, oh, I might be league bound.
I always knew I had a shot. I had the natural gifts, the height, the IQ. But I think when I got my first scholarship to USC, that's when I really knew like, yo, I'm about to really go with the league for real.
Was it always USC for you, or did you think about other places?
For me, I always wanted to stay home,
Mm.
either whether it be USC, UCLA, Arizona State. But USC recruited me hard, and I loved Andy Enfield and Jason Hart. So I just knew that was the right school for me.
Thinking about those years. So that freshman year for you, you guys go completely undefeated, correct?
Mhm.
Then Zoe leaves to go to UCLA. Did you feel like there was pressure now after being the number one team in the world for a full year to like replicate that through your sophomore through senior year?
Not really pressure because obviously Lonzo was the best player in that freshman year team I had. But that second year, my sophomore, Melo really blew up. He was the face of the team. But when we lost to Oak Hill, like my first high school loss, that one stung a little bit. That one stung everybody. But we were still ranked top 15 in the country. We're still doing our thing. We only had like two losses: Oak Hill and the who else we played? The modern day Bobo team.
Okay,
You know,
okay.
they're pretty good.
Yeah. Who was on the Oak Hill team? They have any NBA players in?
I remember that too. They had Billy Preston.
Okay.
They had Lindell Wigginton.
Okay.
They had Dave McCormick. That's all I can remember right now,
Okay. So yeah, they definitely had some talent. They had some talent over there.
for
Um,
sure.
Obviously the Ball brothers were like this internet sensation on show, on this, on that. I've been in the same room with LeVar like three different times. The man is a character. Do you have any LeVar Ball stories from the years that you played alongside his boys?
Not really. I love LeVar, honestly. I love what he's done, raising those three Ball brothers.
Mhm.
I've known the Ball since I was like 8, 9 years old. I've known them since I was a youngin. So I have a lot of history with them. And, it's just LeVar, always yelling, coaching from the sidelines, no matter who it is out there.
Mhm.
High school, AAU, he's just always coaching. And one thing I respect about LeVar, he's never going to change. He's always going to be himself. He doesn't
Right,
care
right.
who the hell is out there. He's going to be himself.
With that, playing alongside the Ball brothers, and then eventually get into the league and playing alongside Trae Young, are there parallels there as far as like having a point? You've always had like a great point guard, right? What's the difference? What's the difference between Alonzo slash Melo and a Trae Young?
Lonzo, he's kind of unique because I can't really find anything like he can't really do on the court. He can guard, he can shoot, he can pass, sneaky athletic. Melo, he's a flashy one. He's the one that, has no fear. He's gonna do whatever. And, playing with Trey, man, like he surprises you. Like, he's 6 foot 6'1". He's deceptively strong. Like he's stronger than he looks. And he's a floor general. You see the things he's putting up. 30 and 10s, that little streak he had. Trey's so underrated. He should have been an all-star too.
I did want to ask you about that. We're gonna jump around. I got to run the show out, but we're gonna jump around with the All Star stuff because obviously last Thursday it was announced and Trae Young was on the outside looking in for the second
Right.
year in a row after putting up some crazy stats. Does does that something that's talked about in the locker room at all? Like the next day, y'all be like, man, Trae, I don't know what else you could really do.
Not really, but I think we all kind of like, think the same thing. Like personally, for me, I think he should have been an all-star.
Mhm.
I think where right now where our team is at. We're trying to make this run, try to maybe led to him not being an all-star, but I think Trey should know like none of that matters, man. We always have an end goal. Trying to go to the playoffs, make a deep run. So it sucks. It's politics in the
Mhm.
NBA, but I think he should have been an all-star.
Yeah, I always wonder what it is because obviously it's not the first time Trae Young has not been an All Star after putting up ridiculous stats. Um, He was second in voting amongst fans, so the fans obviously had his back. But every year he kind of ranks low on the media and he ranks low amongst his peers. And then obviously the reserves are done by the coaches. So I don't know what the disconnect is. And maybe I guess most people say the fact that the team hasn't been as successful this year as some of the previous years. But like the talent is a talent. The talent is a talent. And since then, the last two games, we talk about y'all in the 4-game streak. He's been everywhere offensively and defensively in that one game against who? Not your last game against the Warriors. Was that the Suns before that?
Yeah.
He had the big steal down the stretch on Kevin Durant, obviously. So I don't know what'll happen because obviously Joel Embiid and Julius Randle are probably going to be out for the All-Star game. Maybe he's a replacement. Does he feel okay with being a replacement? Like, does it feel differently, you think?
I mean, I don't know what he's thinking.
Mm.
Honestly, obviously, being a replacement, isn't the same as, being naturally selected. But, I don't know what his mind process is. I don't know what he's thinking about it. But nonetheless, I think he should still be All-Star.
I want to go back before that because you mentioned Lonzo as being a guy that can do everything on the court, which is interesting. I'm a Bulls fan here, so we had 42 games of great Lonzo playing, and obviously he's been battling from his injury. The way that Lonzo is talked about amongst other NBA talent is so interesting because it's a disconnect between like a normal NBA fan. You've said this, Paul George has said this, and so on. So everybody has mentioned the fact that Lonzo is so much better than what maybe the naked eye can see. And what do you think the disconnect is from that?
I'm not sure. Maybe because, he was number 2 pick. Obviously, like, number 2 pick is supposed to be, franchise players and all that. But, I think you guys, anybody in the league, Lonzo's a player that you want on your team. 6'7", point guard, guards the ball, passes, shoots, slash. Can you think of anything he can't do? Honestly.
Nah. It's man, those 41 games in Chicago, man, we was on top of the world. There was nothing nobody can tell me. And then Zoe got injured, and then obviously the last 2 years, the last 2 years been the last 2 years. So yeah, I got to see it firsthand. Like I went to a few games that first season. It was like a combination of fans being in and fans not being in because of COVID and stuff. But that time was the most fun I've had as a Bulls fan since Derrick Rose's MVP season. So I got to experience it for real. And the other night was against the Sacramento Kings, the first time us Bulls fans really got a chance to hear from Lonzo because he's been out rehabbing in California from what we understand. And he was actually on the broadcast and he was talking about things, and it seemed like he's in good spirit. And at the end of the day, that's all we could really ask for, because 2 years without hooping when you're a hooper, I can't imagine the mental toll it can take on you.
Right. Right. No, for sure. I spent time with Lonzo, this summer, see him every once in a while. Man, he's definitely in good spirits. I'm praying real hard for him. He's a good dude, man. Lonzo's a great dude, man. I love his ass. Like, for real. I'm just praying that, he can get healthy and come back next year.
I want to talk about the draft process because you were in the most unique draft of all time. We're talking about the COVID year. You didn't get to walk the stage and shake Adam Silver's hands or anything like that. What was the draft process like? Do you fly out to do the real workouts? Is everything via Zoom? Because again, the world was closed down for 2 years straight.
Actually, like pre-draft, I was hurt, so I didn't
Mm.
fly or do any workouts or anything. I just had a few teams come visit me, had a few Zooms, and that was about it. And the actual draft day, I actually, thought it was dope because it was from home. Had a little draft party. I had my family in this little guest house I was at,
Mhm.
for the cameras to see. But then I had like 200 people outside, cheering for me when my name got called. So, it was cool to, experience that with the, people who support you and love you the most.
Was it always Atlanta? Because I went back to look at some mock drafts. I saw you range from as high as 4 down to like 10, and obviously you met in the middle there. Did you know it was Atlanta?
No, I actually didn't because it's so funny. I thought I was going, to Cleveland or maybe
Mhm.
DC. Atlanta came in the picture kind of late. I talked to them once, but I didn't really know that I was going there. I told my agent, "Don't tell me. I want to be surprised."
Okay.
And I'm just seeing, Melo get picked, then Patrick Williams gets picked, then Okoro gets picked. Now I'm like, yeah, I have no idea where I'm going now. And my agent says, "You're going to Atlanta. Here's Travis." Just waterworks coming, man. It was a good night.
It's good. It's good to hear. Um, you brave though. I'm the type of guy that's like, tell me as soon as you know, because now my anxiety goes down and all of that. Because in that draft, it was like it was gonna be the top 3 in whatever order, and then after that, I saw again you mocked at 4, and then down at 10, and then Patrick Williams jumped up, and then Denny Abdia fell down. So it was just all over the place. So I would have said, give me the call ASAP because I need to know.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Everyone's different. I knew I was going to get drafted in the lottery. So, I just wanted that surprise, that little build up. I
Hmm.
wanted to see if I was going to move to California or DC, Ohio. I was just, excited to see where I was going to spend the next 4 years.
So I let the viewers of the show know that you were coming on. And one of the questions I got asked a good amount was, what was the transition like between being a California boy to moving to Atlanta?
It's so different. Atlanta's like, you can feel like, coming from the city, LA,
Hmm.
where it's bigger to Atlanta, it's a lot more green, kind of not rural, but like a little more country than,
Right.
California. It's definitely different. But, I love the city of Atlanta. You know, better than most, not most cities, but compared to like, somewhere like Memphis,
Hmm.
Oklahoma. I'm happy that, I'm in a great city of Atlanta where there's a lot of things I can do. Fans are great, organization is great. I'm grateful to be in this situation.
That's love. This is another question from the audience, and I want to get this guy his shout out because he responds to a lot of the tweets about the show. He is a diehard Atlanta Hawks fan, so he's watching y'all more than pretty much anybody in the world. So shout out to at D43. He's got two different questions for you, Onyeka. How much did playing with LaMelo prepare you for the two-man game with Trae? We kind of talked about that a little bit, so let's skip that one to the second one. The Hawks are running a lot more dribble handoffs this season, with you handling the ball. Did you watch any other bigs to pick up some tips on the handoff hub? I didn't know y'all dribble handoffs is up. He's watching like that.
Not really. I don't really watch nobody like that. It's just, the more I do it, the more experience I have. And, I do it the most with Bogdanovich, my dude
Mhm.
Bogey. And I'm learning how to get him open, how I can get open. It's just something I've started to perfect.
One of the last things you said, I think it was the end of last year, in your exit interview, you said, next time you see me, I'll have a jump shot. Right? You remember saying that?
I do remember saying that, and the
And
fans
and
ate it up too.
and now you're attempting 1 3-pointer a game. The other night you just hit 2 of 4. The game before that, 1 of 1, 1 of 1. What is it like? Because now things are different. Now this is where the nerd in me come out. Because the previous year, you played pretty much no minutes at the 4 alongside Clint. 5 minutes
Yeah,
total last year. And this year, y'all have played 132 minutes together, and it's been pretty successful so far. Even last night, I think one of the big reasons y'all were able to pull out that win is because you and Clint were dominating together because they had the smaller Warriors. Do you think you adding that 3-point shot is one of the reasons why coaching has felt more familiar or okay with you running the 4?
definitely. Shooting me defensively as well. Q has a lot of faith in me, a lot of trust in me, and I appreciate him for that. And I'm getting my percentage up a little bit more, shooting these threes. I work hard, trying to perfect my game in that aspect. So I try to keep, knocking them shots down and making sure he's respected.
Do you think that the evolution of the game kind of forces you to learn how to shoot? Was that something in the cards 5 years ago?
Nah, not in the cards 5 years ago. I've always been like a slasher, had the best touch around the rim, but definitely how the game's going now. Just want to expand it a little bit to see if I can do it. And I'm getting more comfortable shooting threes.
It's good. It's good to see. It's good to see. You, and then the other night, same night, Evan Mobley also hit. I think he hit 3 for 3 from three. Like two guys that when they were going through the draft process, a lot of people didn't expect to eventually learn how to shoot threes, and here y'all both are attempting them and making them. So, it's so interesting how the evolution of the game has gone because I'm a little bit older than you, a little bit like maybe 5 years older than you. So, of guy of your size shooting threes was just kind of different. It's not something I remember watching a bunch when I was a kid. So to see it across the entire association is dope if you ask me, because I think scoring is fun. It's the most fun thing about basketball.
No, for sure. Funny you say Evan, man, because me and Evan played together when we were younger.
Right.
I played with Evan for a few years. He's always had it. No, he's always had it. But offenses are becoming different.
Hmm.
Offensive schemes are becoming different. Where you gotta learn how to shoot the ball. So I've always had to touch. I got to keep working on it. Same as Evan. Anybody else who's coming up. I feel like you should really prioritize shooting the ball.
So we talk about offenses. All right. So far this year, there's been some big games. Luka Doncic had a 73-point game against y'all. And he was on a whole different level. As his opponent in that moment of time, what is kind of going on? I know you're not necessarily a point of attack defender in a lot of cases, but obviously defense is a team thing. In that game, I'll just open the floor. What about that game is notable, if that makes sense?
Luka's a hell of a player. He really showed me what he can do on that game, slashing, shooting. But I just feel like, you're not even allowed to guard nobody no more. Everything's a foul
Mm,
nowadays. League, you touch anybody like one of these, like it's a foul. So, I think that's what, attributes to a lot of guys getting off, scoring these 50, 60, 70-point games. It's hard to, be able to really guard people without, them calling it a foul.
mm,
But like on another instance, like Steph Curry, like,
yep.
he's shooting the hell out of the ball, hitting every shot, 10 threes, it's not much you can do about that, but, make everything tough for him and still just have one of those nights.
Yeah, I think in that game with Curry, he dropped 13 straight points in the fourth quarter. I think he had 22 in the fourth, but then overtime came around. And I don't know if it was something that Quinn put together or whatever. You guys really locked in, and in overtime, it didn't even feel like it was an overtime. Like y'all really took over that game. So the difference in the score, like how do you prepare for a Steph Curry game? I mean, I don't get to go against Steph too much because you're different conferences, but um, how do you prep for a guy like Steph?
Dudes like, Steph, KD, they're gonna hit tough shots. Like that's just what it is. But for me and my team, we just try and make everything tough for these, high caliber players in this league. And not get deflated when they hit a tough shot on us. They're gonna hit tough shots. You just gotta keep making them work.
One thing before we get you out of here, because again, I know you're a busy guy. I want to ask you to build a starting five, and you're at the center. So give me your top, your 1 through 4 of players you've played alongside throughout the entirety of your basketball playing career.
My playing career.
Mm-hmm. So at any capacity, even if we talking open run. If you were on a same team as somebody in the open run, and you want to add them to your starting five, let's do it.
Okay. I'm gonna have Trae at my one.
Okay.
I'm gonna have Melo at my two. I don't know about 6'7", 6'8". Yeah, put him at my two.
Mm-hmm.
Put Lonzo on my three.
Right.
And I'm gonna go with Evan Mobley at my four.
Emo. Okay. Okay. That's a
Oh,
lot of
that's some
size on that
size.
team. Yeah, some size
That's
on
some
that team.
size.
There's some size on that team. But you know what? We saw Zoe. He can run almost any position. He don't need the ball to be a successful player. So I don't mind that. Who's a six man?
Six man, six man. You know, I like size, man. I'm gonna throw in Jalen Johnson, my boy JJ.
Oh, okay. Oh, so that was one of the things that was not on my list of things to talk about. JJ's having a ridiculous season. Most improved player candidate. I think that if he didn't miss that period of time during the season, that he'd probably be in the top 3. What do you see from him differently this year than last year?
His confidence.
Mhm.
They're really letting him go. He's always been athletic, but I think one thing that stands out from last year to this year is his shooting. He's been shooting the hell out of the ball this year.
Mhm.
And that's one thing I really, proud of him for, respecting him for. Like, he ain't always got to go down, try and put it on someone's head. Like, he's out there shooting with confidence. And he's handling the ball, passing the ball. He's going to be a force in this league real soon.
I agree. One of my first episodes of the show this season, I picked the 7 most intriguing players for this year, and Jalen Johnson was on. Like I saw what could have been, and he's been executing, which is real dope. Very last question. Obviously, there's so many rumors surrounding your team right now, between DeJounte Murray, this or that. How much of that as an NBA player, and not specifically DeJounte, but just in the course of your career, how much of that do you really pay attention to on a night in, night out basis?
I mean, you hear it all the time. Even if you don't want to, like, you want to hear rumors, media talking. At the end of the day, we all have one job to do, and we are trying to go out there and win games for real. So we got to put all of that to the side when we, step in between those lines.
Mhm. Well, appreciate you taking the time. First podcast appearance is done. Was it tough? Did you enjoy it? Talk to
It
me.
was, it was cool, man. It's always, fun to talk about hoops, man. I could do it for days.
That's love. That's love. If you ever want to come back, just hit us up. We got nothing but time. People at home that's in Onyeka Okongwu, good luck for the rest of the season, bro.
Appreciate it, dog.
So we mentioned the Steph Curry 60-point game against the Atlanta Hawks, and I thought it was so interesting to see how the Hawks have had these games, right? The 73-point game from Luka Doncic and how they defended him versus Steph Curry, who again in that fourth quarter, he was as electric as can be. Right now, he's leading one of the top guys in the league when it comes to fourth quarter scoring. I know people are gonna mention the stat about their record when they're in a 2-point game and they're just not very good. But fourth quarters alone, Steph Curry has been amazing, other than like him dribbling off his own foot every once in a while. But he's been incredible. And then overtime came around, and it felt like Steph Curry just didn't get the touches that we just saw in that fourth quarter. Now, the Warriors, of course, are missing some people here or there, but that's not necessarily an excuse anymore because every single team is really banged up. But I always want to look at a performance like this. I said the same thing about Karl Anthony Towns. I said the same thing about Devin Booker. When they dropped 60 in a loss, we've had 3 of those this year, by the way. We had never before this season had 2. And now we got 3, and we're not even at the All-Star break, so we might get even more of those. Though it came in a loss, like that experience when I was viewing it was just ridiculous. And I've said this before, and I'm gonna continue to say it at least until the 8th, because that's when the trade deadline is. The pressure is on for that Warriors team because it really was a bunch of Steph Curry and a bunch of other bricks. Yeah, Clay, as much as we love you, it was a really rough outing across the board for the guys. So I did think that the Atlanta Hawks did a very good job coming out of that fourth quarter. I mean, it took them 4 quarters, Quinn, to really make some adjustments and kind of deny Steph Curry quite a bit and say, like, okay, anybody but Steph. And sometimes coaches go into a game with this idea, right? Go into a half with the idea of anybody but Steph. But because Steph is such an electric off-ball mover and they have such a great system over there with these screens and everything, sometimes the anybody but Steph thing doesn't really work. In the fourth quarter, in this one, it did. And then DeJounte Murray went overdrive to force the overtime. And then in the overtime, him and Trae Young just did their thing. So, and Onyeka, I can't look past that with his 20 points, 16 rebounds or something like that. One of his best games of his career. But this week alone, this is how things going to work, y'all. Let me look in. This episode is dropping on the 5th, February 5th. Our next episode is the day after the trade deadline. A lot of things are going to shift over the next couple of days. The whole landscape of our association might be slightly different. Now, Shams Charania mentioned this before, saying that him and Jake Fisher, they're not completely sure what type of deadline we're going to get, but they're saying brace yourself for not as good of a deadline as last year or the year before that, because 2 years ago, we got Tyrese Halliburton getting traded, James Harden getting traded. Last year, we saw Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving get moved, and those type of shifts really change things, right? This year, from all reports, we're not going to have that caliber of player getting moved. So it's really about the trades around the edges. And I kind of find those trades a little bit more exciting when a contending team makes a small change here or there, and boom, now we look at them as a full-fledged title favorite. So next time we talk, after this episode, we got to go through the full landscape of the association because things are probably going to look different. But you know it's probably not going to look different? My Chicago Bulls. I was sitting upstairs in my other office playing a little Power World. I got to admit, I have 30 hours, 40. Maybe that's light to some of y'all, but I got a lot of hours on Power World, just chilling, trying to enjoy my day. Yesterday, I already did a full day of work. This is my kickback, relax. The daughter was taking a nap. And then Shams drops this tweet. Bulls say Zach LaVine, in consultation with Team and Clutch Sports Group, has elected to undergo season-ending surgery on his right foot. And then, not really recognizing this, I went through the 5 stages of grief. I swear to you, it was not intentional. But if you look at those tweets, it happened. The denial. The original tweet was just, wow, no way. No way this is real. Now, I'm thinking about this from a couple different perspectives, right? I'm thinking about this as like having Zach LaVine be one of the bigger names that could potentially be traded as a two-time All-Star. I'm thinking about this as the future of my favorite organization in the Chicago Bulls. And I'm also thinking about Zach LaVine, the person, because I've met him a few times, and every time I've interviewed him, talked to him, he's always been as cool as can be. Quick story time as an aside. I was there before last season started. This is the media day, and the way it works in the United Center, at least, is that we go down to where the locker rooms are, and if you're a part of a different media source, you go into these rooms, and then the players walk down this hallway and poke their head into the room. Can X player come in here, right? This is my first year. I didn't have a lot of respect. So it wasn't like I'm getting the top end players, right? And then eventually somebody from the PR team said, Zach is not having a great day. He's going to go home. And I had thought in my mind I was going to get Zach LaVine. So I'm like, dang, but it is what it is. I wrapped up my shoots with the other guys, Patrick Williams, Javonte Green, Derrick Jones Jr., so on and so forth. And right as we were about to leave, Zach sticks his head in and said, y'all want me? He had to do that. It was cool. He was having a rough time. And then later we found out the reason he was having a rough time, Bulls fans, if you remember this, Zach LaVine didn't start last season. He was injured. He missed the first week and a half of the season. I think that was the day that he found out that he was about to miss opening night. So anyway, he's always been very, very cool with me. And I'm sure a lot of people have that same experience with Zach. So I looked at it from a couple different perspectives. Then after my denial, I was angry, not at Zach, not at Clutch Sports, but angry at the organization because we've done in the Chunish Carney Shovis timeline, the Mark Eversley timeline, the Chicago Bulls have made it a total of 6 different trades. 5 of those trades happened in the first 5 months of them taking over the team, getting rid of everybody. Wendell Carter, deuces. Larry Marketing, deuces. So on and so forth. But since 2021, the guys have done one singular trade. And that trade was to flip 2 second-round picks for 1 second-round pick so we can get Julian Phillips. That's not going to be enough, especially when every person watching the Bulls and every person covering this sport has said the Bulls were on a highway to nowhere. Everybody knew it. But those first 40-something games of Lonzo Ball and DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Vucevic was so very good that we're looking at it with rose-colored glasses. When Lonzo comes back, everything will be okay again. And what we know is after 2 years, there's no real timetable for Zo. And everybody covering the sport is like, hey, get rid of your assets right now. Maybe not break it down to the studs completely, but let's just switch some things up a little bit because it's time. This team has a definite ceiling, and what we're seeing is this ceiling is that we're a playing team every single season. So I'm angry because we should have been making moves before all of this, right? For Zach's sake, who, by all accounts, he's ready to move on to his next team anyway. By all accounts, we should have moved Zach LaVine before all of this. So I went to anger. And then I started to bargain. Well, okay, Zach LaVine is done for the season. Maybe that means that we can move DeMar DeRozan. Nothing against DeMar. Love DeMar as a player, actually. But obviously there's a ceiling here, and I'm trying to just try to figure out what the next thing looks like. Okay, we're going to have Zach on the roster. He's probably going to go home to Cali, rehab for the rest of the season, and so we might not see him traveling with the team. So maybe by February 8th here, we'll trade DeMar DeRozan, maybe get rid of Caruso, and I don't mean that in a negative sense, but he's our most valuable asset. Every team is calling at this point. Maybe we sell high on Caruso, we sell DeMar before we get into the offseason because they've offered him an extension. He didn't like the number. So either we might lose him in free agency for nothing, or we might be pigeonholed to pay him a contract that's too big for his production. He's 34. You give him a 3-year deal, he's gonna be 37? Nah, I'm not with that. Then I'm not gonna say depression because depression is such a strong thing. I definitely didn't go through depression, but I was definitely sad about this. I was definitely sad about this. And then what did I do? The Bulls are about to play the Sacramento Kings, and I said, at least we got Kobe White. All 5 stages in a matter of 6 hours. I went through them all. At least the Bulls have Zach LaVine. I'm sorry, at least they have Kobe White. And Kobe White had another really good game. Had a couple rough turnovers down the stretch against the Kings, but they were down by 30 and fought back to lose by, they lost. Okay, whatever. But the Zach LaVine news sucks. And since then, there are a lot of different reports and speculations about how we get to this point. Some people are speculating that because the Bulls were very, very close to pull off a trade where Bogdanovich and Joe Harris coming back to Chicago, the Zach LaVine opted to the surgery because he'd rather just not play with the worst team of all time, right? And I tweeted something similar to that, and I got a few tweets like, well, why would anybody do that? Bro, this is the National Basketball Association. We have seen players straight up tell the front office, if you do not trade me, I'm going to have surgery. We've seen players, because this is the way it works. Zach LaVine was probably given two different options. Either you have your surgery right now, or you wait until the offseason, because it's probably good enough to play on at least a little bit. You wait until the offseason, you do it then. Zach has been given this path before. And every single time in Zach's career, he's opted to play. Zach played with a bum hand. Offseason came around, boom, quick little surgery. Probably very similar. It was a surgery that he was going to have eventually, but I'd rather just not be associated with the worst team of all time. So you know what? I'll have my surgery. And the reason people are saying that is because the report says Zach LaVine, Bulls say Zach LaVine in consultation with the team and Clutch Sports. How often do you talk to your representation about having surgery? I know I ain't never done that before. Times I've needed surgery ASAP. Roll them in. So get well, Zach LaVine. I'm talking about a foot injury, and foot injuries are not easy to heal from. A lot of people tell you, like Kevin Durant is very open about his time with the 5th or 6th metatarsal in that recovery, and it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. So I'm wishing nothing but the best for Zach and his family. But the time has come. Artunis Carney Chauvis and Mark Eversley, on me and Bulls fandom, we will be rioting in them streets. I back in the day, I made a full diss track about the Garpax regime, dead ass on YouTube. Full diss track about them. Make the wrong decisions this deadline. Best believe I'm back in the booth. Now it's time for a lot of y'all's favorite segment. We're going to bring in producer Greg to give us his eye test takes.
All right, Kenny, first one. People are sleeping on the Kings as a contender in the West, and I'll tell you why. I think they have 4 components of a real contender. First, they have a balance of youth and experience. They're super well coached. They have a great lead guard who also happens to be very clutch. And they have a real hunger for vengeance after last year's loss in 7 games to the Warriors.
I'm not there just yet. And honestly, this deadline could change a lot of that, right? They are a team that have said to be pretty active, but since then, Harrison Barnes has been playing the please don't trade me type game. Same thing with Kevin Huerter. But they don't, when I think about contention specifically for the Western Conference, I think about if they were matched up against the Denver Nuggets, do I believe they have a real legitimate chance to win? And I'm not there yet. If they matched up against the Clippers, do I think they got a real chance to win? I'm not really just there just yet. And maybe this deadline can change that, but I don't see them as a real contender, and maybe they prove me wrong.
What do you think they're missing the most?
I think that they don't. The variance of scoring is maybe not as great as I would want. I do believe that they're missing some defensive, some point of attack defenders. And shout out to Keegan Murray because he's been phenomenal there all season long. But it can't just all be Keegan Murray. And honestly, Sabonis, as good as he is, and I'm really actually upset that he was not an All-Star this year. He's one of those playoff players that I'm like, I need to see a full series of you being as elite as we know you are. So maybe it's just a little bit of trust that I don't have with them just yet.
Next one. The top 6 dunkers in the NBA in no particular order are Ja Morant, Aaron Gordon, Zach LaVine, Shaedon Sharpe, Ant Edwards, and Derrick Jones Jr. So first, do you agree? And what is your order?
I honestly would probably take Zach off at this point in time. He hasn't had like a really good, this is going to sound so stupid to say, dunking season in a few years now. I think part of that is like him detaching himself from being known as a dunker after the 2016 dunk contest with Aaron Gordon. And we're like, a lot of the times when he's on a break by himself, he's not trying to show out. He's like, let me get my 2 points. And some of those other guys you mentioned are like, oh, I got a runway to the rim. I'm trying to don't go on somebody's head. I'm trying to do a 360. So I would maybe take Zach out, but I think maybe the respect factor of what he has done in the past probably keeps him there. On the fly, trying to think of somebody that deserves, like Derrick Jones Jr., lock him in. Ja Morant, lock him in. Anthony Edwards, lock him in. I'm trying to think, is there somebody I would replace Zach with? And it's so sad because in my mind, I always still want to say Zion, but he's in a very similar vein as Zach at this point, where he's just not trying to do anything too spectacular. I would probably sub out Zach for Obi Toppin. Obi Toppin fast break is something I look forward to whenever I watch the Pacers. So that's my substitution.
He shows out for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just pull up one. I just want to share one picture with you on my screen real quick. This was 2013. Can you see this?
Is that DJJ?
This is Derrick Jones Jr. and below him is yours truly. This is an AU tournament at Spooky Nook in Jersey. So at this moment in time, we were in a 2-3 zone, and I saw what I thought was a floater. I'm on the back left of the zone, and it was actually an alley-oop, and all I felt was a foot kick me in the head. And so there was a video of it, which I don't have, but the video lived on the Hoop Group website. Hoop Group was like an AAU kind of organization. It lived on the homepage of the Hoop Group website for about 2 weeks. And it was just Derrick Jones Jr. catching a lob on me. And I apologize for the 2013 Instagram filter here. But I knew at this moment, this dude was going to be a future NBA dunk contest champion.
That's insane. Like, look where his hand is at. That makes no sense to me that somebody should be able to jump that high. And you know what? He plays a lot of like 4. He's like 6'5". He's like 6'5", 6'6". Like, it makes no sense the type of athleticism he really has. And that's I'm using this very, very loosely now. That's one of the guys. That's one of the homies, man. That's one of the homies from his time in Chicago. I got to interview him a few different times. I don't know if he would call me his homie, but he's always been a really cool dude. And so you was really out there in the hardwood, really playing against NBA talent.
Dude, Philly has those guys, man. Derrick Jones right now in the league. Got Lamar Stevens.
Yep.
I grew up playing against. Obviously the older dudes like Kyle Lowry and the Morris twins. Cam Reddish is a Philly dude. Mo Bamba played high school ball in Philly. There's obviously Jalen Brunson and the Nova guys. Dante DiVincenzo I played against the AAU. Philly has them dudes.
Did y'all win the game?
We did win the game.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters.
We did win the game. We had a collection of dudes that were all like low-level D3 dudes, and like we just busted our ass and like ended up, playing harder, and that's how we won. All right, last one from this eye test take. So all these series, as a caveat, I believe would go to 7. They'd be really close. But the Lakers or the Warriors would upset either the Thunder or the T-Wolves in a first-round series.
I've had this conversation before with the rest of the guys, and I could see it. Now, if I was a betting man, which I am, I probably wouldn't put money on it though. Like, if it happened, I wouldn't be like, oh, what a surprise, because I think that both teams have their flaws, that a veteran team like the Lakers, even though they don't look amazing on most nights, or a veteran-led team like the Warriors, even though they don't look amazing on many nights, where they would have what it takes to pull off that upset. Where, like, I've watched so much Minnesota Timberwolves this season. A lot of the times that offense, that 20th ranked offense, looks a lot worse than 20th in the last 6 minutes of games. And those are the type of games that you don't want to be in against LeBron. You don't want to be in those games against Steph Curry. So I feel more confident, and this is going to be probably like going against what I'm thinking, more confident in OKC's approach to these teams. But they're one of the youngest teams in the league, and that's probably going to play in some way throughout the playoffs. They have to just hope that they don't get the Lakers. The Warriors, I think that they probably feel okay about both teams. I think that both teams have enough perimeter defensive guys. Nobody's stopping Steph Curry, but like to give Steph Curry enough different looks, they were like, okay, we feel good, but like those teams don't really have much for Anthony Davis. Like Anthony Davis versus the Thunder is a tough series. LeBron versus the Thunder is a tough series, and I could say the same thing against the Timberwolves. So I wouldn't bet money on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it happened.
I actually think the Warriors would have a better shot against the Thunder. I think they would really struggle against the Timberwolves' size. And I think the Lakers would have a better shot against the Timberwolves. I think that the Thunder are a smarter team, but obviously, again, much smaller.
Mm-hmm.
But I weirdly trust the Thunder's youth more than I trust the Timberwolves' youth in terms of making good decisions in the big parts of the game.
That's kind of how I feel too. The major thing when I watch the Wolves that bothers me the most, and again, I really do, and like I've watched so many, I really enjoy watching them play, is that Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns turn the ball over way too much for my liking. And when I watch the OKC Thunder, they feel like they don't nearly turn the ball over in those clutch scenarios. Where Ant and Karl-Anthony Towns, they do it a little bit more. And also, as dope as he is, because he's one of the best players in basketball, Anthony Edwards' shot selection sometimes down the stretch is a part that I can't look past. He'll make them, and you'll be like, great, but when they're missing, it's like, could we get something better than that, you know?
I think it's the perfect example of the difference between having your best player as a 1 and your best player as a shot creating 2. When you have the ball in Shea's hands, you know you're going to get something good out of it just because he's a point guard at heart.
Mm-hmm.
Where Ant, as good as he is, isn't a natural point, and therefore there's going to be some questionable decisions down the stretch.
Yeah, I feel that because in that little stretch where they didn't have Mike Conley, things were really, really rough in those clutch games. It was 2 of them in particular that I don't remember who their opponents were, but both games went down to what we consider clutch time, and Mike is on the sideline, and it's like it's Ant, it's Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and I just don't trust them as much to facilitate an offense as Mike Conley. And the Timberwolves don't have that backup guy. There's been rumors about them looking for that guy, and maybe that's at the expense of Kyle Anderson, who's not having the best year. But if they can add another floor general, I trust him with the ball, low turnover guy for situations like that, I will feel a lot more confident in them as a team. I want to say thank you to Onyeka Okongwu for taking the time to really break down and talk some hoops. Shout out to Greg for his eye test takes. It's always an open conversation. What do you agree with Greg about, with me about? And leave a like, subscribe. Again, those numbers matter. Those numbers matter. I'll see y'all in a couple days.